Hi friends, welcome back. Wanted to try to come at you a little bit differently today. Wanted to talk to you about how I'm approaching teaching my junior class this year. Juniors are traditionally an American literature class in the American curriculum. We usually go freshman intro to lit, sophomores world literature, juniors American lit, and seniors British literature. And I think there's been a big movement to move from these traditional categories to something that's more closely associated with a college and career prep, which often is just a code word for test prep, which is, I think, kind of a shame. A lot of stuff in the news lately about how kids can't read long books, about how kids have no attention spans, about how kids' rates of depression and anxiety are skyrocketing, about how American high schools are failing kids. And I wanted to talk to you about what I'm doing with my juniors this year. I teach 5 sections of advanced placement literature and composition to seniors, but I do have 1 section of regular track juniors, and I love them. I started this year by bucking the usual trend towards American literature, and I went with nonfiction to start the year. And I wanted to tell you why I'm framing my year with Malcolm Gladwell's book Outliers, which is a great way to start the year with a group of juniors or seniors, which is a great book to introduce to juniors or seniors, even if it's not the beginning of the year. And I wanted to start with Outliers because students respond to nonfiction. Fiction can be hit or miss. Students who love fiction love fiction. You get a wider array of students who will have the hook sunk if you read nonfiction. And Malcolm Gladwell's book is high interest. He makes interesting analogies, and he talks about something that juniors and seniors are very interested in the book Outliers, and that is what makes people successful. Before I get into that, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Bloom's taxonomy. Here's our friend Bloom. I have him on the board. Down low, we of course have, there's my finger, we have the recall level. We move up to, I don't think I can point this well. We move up to understanding. We move up to the ability to apply. We move to analyze, evaluate, and synthesize. A few definitions really fast because these words frequently are alien to our students, and I'm afraid that a lot of them are alien to a lot of teachers. Recall just means at a basic level you can remember what you read. Above that, you can not only recall what you read, but you can understand what you read and perhaps explain it to someone else, maybe paraphrase it. Apply means that you can take what you read and, that's right, apply it to your own life. You can put it into use. Analyze is a fancy word that too many people think just means write a paper. And analyze means we break something into its component parts, and then we explain how those component parts work together to make something function or not function. When I talk about analyze with my students, I might talk about how in a lab at the hospital, they might analyze people's blood to see, red cell counts, white cell counts, check iron levels, hemoglobin, etc., etc. Above analyze, we have evaluate, which is another word that too many people think just means write a paper. And evaluate literally means to judge, and more specifically, it means to judge based on criteria. And then at the top of the pyramid, we have what's called synthesize, which means put together, or also we call this create. This is when we can use the base levels of the knowledge that we have accumulated below, and we can create new things. And I think there's been a lot of criticism of education in the last 20 or 30 years. I know there has been because I've been in education for the last 18 years. And a lot of people say that we are falling short in education on analyze, evaluate, and synthesize, and we need to take more care of teaching our students what we call the HOTS, the higher order thinking skills. And I have a counter argument to that I think is a little counterintuitive, but I think if you listen, you'll agree too. It's not really that when you look at the test scores, we're failing in these categories. It's that we're failing down here, and because we're failing down here, because we can't even read to recall or read to understand, we can't read to analyze and evaluate. And part of this has to do with, before you get to the HOTS here, you have to take care of the bottom things. You have to be an apprentice reader and thinker before you can be an advanced practicing reader and thinker. And we are failing up here because we're failing down here, and then we're exacerbating the problem in education because we are making huge jumps to try and make our students learn things up here, and they just fundamentally can't do it because they haven't been successful down here. We need to increase the apprentice period for our readers, because the apprentice period for readership in America has been lost. Students are no longer reading newspapers at home. Their parents don't get them. They're not reading magazines at home. They're not reading books at home. They are very sophisticated readers of text messages and memes and video game chats, Instagram feeds, etc. But our students don't have the ability to sustainably read, and it's limiting their critical thinking abilities, it's limiting their vocabularies. They are living in a technicolor world, and because their vocabularies and skill sheets are short, they are reading that world in black and white, and it's a problem for us. Anyway, bring in Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers. And I'm teaching Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers. I'm not prepared for this video at all. I just thought I would shoot it. And so let me clear some board space. I'm teaching Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers because I want my students to really sink their teeth into something. I want them to sustainably read, and I want them to enjoy their reading. And in fact, many of them, having finished the unit, are telling me that they did enjoy the unit. But I'm going to give you Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers in a nutshell, and I think you'll see why my students love it so much. Let me swap hands here. And we're back. So first of all, Outliers is subtitled The Story of Success, and my students, of course, want to know about success because they want to be successful. And I think that most people look at success and they see that someone is successful because they have talent or skill. And this lets us explain other people's success, and it also lets us off the hook because then we can think if we're failing, we just don't have talent or skill. But when you read Outliers, you first learn that a lot of people who have success, first of all, have that success because they have opportunity. And this is me paraphrasing some of the early chapters of the book the way I would with my students. And opportunity means that they are in the right place at the right time. And it also means that they have access to technology and mentors or coaching that other people don't have access to. They also have permission. And I could go into more detail on this, but I'd rather the video be shorter, and frankly, I'd rather you just read the book and maybe have your students read the book too. And then Malcolm Gladwell goes deeper in his perhaps most famous point from the book, where he talks about the 10,000 hour rule, and he says after people have some level of talent and they have opportunity, they then have hard work and focused practice. And if you're watching my video, I assume there's a good chance you've already read this book or you've heard these things. But most of my students haven't read it. The 10,000 hour rule has been widely, debated and quote unquote debunked and then reaffirmed. Malcolm Gladwell has a new book that's either coming out or has recently come out that reassesses this. I understand. I haven't read that book yet. I'm just trying to argue that you should teach your students Malcolm Gladwell's book, Outliers, because it's high interest and it gives your students a framework for understanding that to be successful in the world, they need to take their talent and skills, they need to combine it with opportunity and find places where they can take advantage of opportunities, and then they need to just pour in hard work. And my students always respond really positively to this book. I assign it a chapter at a time, for a chapter or two chapters at a time for several days, for a couple or 3 weeks at the beginning of the year. The students do the reading. I give them small quizzes. I give them short answer quizzes. I give them small writing assignments. And at the end of the unit this year, I had my students do a quick and easy evaluative essay for me so I could see how much they understood the book, and also I was cheating and seeing how well they could write. And I gave them a thesis on the board, and their introduction paragraph basically read, this year in English, we read Malcolm Gladwell's book, Outliers. Here are 3 things I learned from the book, and they had to choose the 3 things they learned. You know the formula, body paragraph for each of the things, support with quotes and evidence, and then explain the evidence. And my students learned wonderful things. One of the things they learned was that in terms of talent, you just have to hit a threshold and then talent doesn't matter anymore. A basketball player only has to be so tall in order to be successful in the NBA. A musician has to only have so much skill. A college student only has to be a little bit smarter than the average person in America to be successful in college. And after that, things like opportunity and hard work become more important. And we have discussions in my class about which is more important, opportunity or hard work or talent. And my students come up with really interesting arguments, and spoiler alert, they always realize that either opportunity or hard work is the most important thing, and that talent and skill don't matter quite so much. And this gives my students the permission, the authority to take control of their own lives and do the things they want to do, and it takes away their ability to make excuses. In the latter half of this book, Gladwell talks about not so much this triple Venn diagram of talent, opportunity, and hard work, but he starts talking about cultural heritages and how the cultures we grow up in, and we're talking here about cultures and not ethnicities or races, have impacts on who we are. And so there's great stuff about feuding families in Kentucky. There's great stuff about plane crashes. And my students at the end of the year, when they write these papers, one of the things that I was so pleased with this year was the way that my students talked about how they learned that communication is so important in life. And they learned about what Malcolm Gladwell calls mitigated speech, and how mitigated speech can be a problem, and how we have to speak clearly and explicitly. And this is, of course, exactly the kind of stuff that I want to teach them in my high school English class. Having started my year with Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, I've not only given my students a book that was high interest that they all read, I've not only inured them to doing some homework and some writing at the beginning of the year, but I've also shown them that I care about them and their futures. And by buying into them, by teaching this book, I've gotten them to buy into me. And for the rest of the year, the things that I teach go better. And there are countless opportunities for me to reference back to this text as I move through the rest of my curriculum. And frankly, I'm still a little on the fence. I'm going to try and get some student money, some teacher money, some funding to the class set of Gladwell's new book. And if I can't get it, I will be using Tipping Point next semester to kind of bookend my school year with Malcolm Gladwell. Anywho, thank you so much for listening. See you guys next time. Oh, please, if I am giving you stuff that helps you, do me a favor and hit the like button so that I know this is working. I know everyone says that. I could literally use the positive affirmation. And if this is going well for you, I'd love you to subscribe. And I would really, 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 really quadruple really love to see you comment below, because I would love to give you feedback and engage with you in the comments. Teachers, the fight is real. Good luck. See you out there.